Welcome to Colonie TV, the governmental educational channel for the town of Colonie.
My name is Matt. I'm a recovering alcoholic and addict. This is my story on Inside Addiction.
So Matt, tell me how it was. How was it growing up?
I come from a very blue-collar family. Grew up in the city of Troy, New York. Um, um, very, very somewhat well off where everybody thought we were well off. My father worked 2 jobs. My mother worked 2 jobs. I grew up and my brothers grew up in a beautiful raised ranch with a large backyard with the full basketball court, the playhouse, the in-ground swimming pool with the diving board and the slide and the side attached garage, and we had bicycles and we had the little remote control cars, and we had every toy you can ever imagine. But my father worked very, very hard to get us all that. He went out of his way to do a lot of things. I come from a family of 5, my mother, my father, my older brother, and I have a younger brother also. But growing up in that situation was always, it was great for me growing up. I did Little League. I grew up in a lot of different situations in the neighborhood. I had freedom to go roam and play with friends, and I was in a beautiful area where it wasn't city. It was, you had neighbors, you had friends, you had the school bus comes, picks you up, everybody's skipping and smiling down the street. But when it came down to it, it was hard. My father worked so much, he wasn't home. My mother worked a lot, she wasn't home. And I was also, down to the end, the middle child of the family. So I was always stuck there, always trying to be better than my older brother and always trying to stay better than my little brother and trying to impress my parents. And it was one of the hardest things I ever had to do in life, from Little League to school to swimming in the pool in the backyard, because my brother was always there doing his thing. Then I would slide in, and then my little brother would be coming in as my older brother was going out. So I was just stuck there in the middle.
So you were kind of, we've heard of in the past, like the middle child, the lost child, kind of. It sounds like.
Yeah, I was so lost. It was crazy. That actually followed me into my addiction. My issue with life is I've always tried to fit in. I don't know who I am. I've always tried to figure out who I was. I was always worried about pleasing everybody that was around me instead of pleasing myself. Even as a little child, from 5 years old to today, I still suffer with issues of that. Working on trying to find my own place in life. It's harder today. It's easier today than what it was back then, because I see things in a different light. But in my childhood, in my home, it was, being around, alcohol, being around parties. That was our family, from my mother's side to my father's side to even going to Little League. My father was the president of South Troy Little League for 15 years. My grandfather built South Troy Little League, and every single weekend, that's where we spent our times in the summer, and every single Saturday night, there was a keg party after baseball games. While us kids played in the baseball field, the parents were out drinking. There was a party for any occasion of the week at my house. Like I said, I had the big house, the big yard. That's where they came and cooked out, and everybody came over to go swimming, and that's where the kegs of beer were, and the chili cook-offs, the birthday parties, the Christmas parties, the hey, it's Tuesday party. It was. That's where everybody convened, was my family home.
So tell me about, you talk about all the parties, being surrounded by alcohol and your family, and tell me about the first time that you used, how you were introduced to which you would later find out would develop into your addiction. First time I used.
The first time I ever used alcohol, I'd have to say I was about 11, 12 years old. Using that alcohol is what ranged me into other items too. But the first time I used, my grandfather was a bar owner in the city of Troy. And my parents, when my grandfather passed away and the bars went away, my parents kept all that liquor and kept everything. We always had in our and it's funny because it's the playroom of the house, we had the bar. And so there's all this old liquor that used to sit there, and it was pretty nasty if I think about it now, because back then there was actually layers of mold on top of the bottles and the inside of the bottles. But us as young kids, we either daring each other or I more just wanted to try it. And the first thing I ever picked up was I'll remember it to the day I die, was a bottle of scotch. And it had mold floating on the top of it, and I gave it a little shake, and I put a little bit on my lips, and it burned, and it didn't feel good. Didn't make my stomach feel good, but I had another sip, and I had another sip, and by the time I knew it, I wasn't feeling right, and that was the first time I ever really tried alcohol.
So, at what age were you then?
About 11 or 12 years old.
So 11 or 12, I mean, how did your drinking progress? Was it just an occasional thing? Was it on the weekends? Was it when there was a party, sneak a few drinks?
I was one of those ones, I snuck the drinks. The first time was a little weird feeling for my body and understanding what it was all about and the feeling that I got. The first initial drink, I didn't really like it, But as I experimented with other things growing up, going 12 to 13 to 14 and growing up in the neighborhood, trying different things. Back when I was younger, those things were Zima. Zima was like drinking a cherry slushy or something. It had that taste to it. So you just,
the clear bottles.
Yeah, you just wanted to pound them. I mean, they tasted really good as a kid. And then I started liking the feeling. And the feeling was more, it was making me feel like I was more involved, more liked, more wanted.
How old do you think you were when you kind of realized that feeling of belonging that you're talking about?
Probably about 13, 14, shortly after my first drink, when I started traveling the neighborhood, hanging out with, that was about the age where we got to go out and, you're out till the street lights are on. But before those street lights were on, I hung out with a group of kids that weren't the top-notch kids, in my neighborhood. We kind of all banded together and we did our own thing. And those kids today have great lives and they never had an issue with addiction. But, for me, it was something that connected to me and it just stuck with me and it was a hard thing to break, my whole life, I'm a big dude. I've always been a big dude. And my whole life has been being basically told that I'm not right. I'm fat, you're overweight, you need to lose weight, you're not good here, you're not good there, let me do this, you can't do that, and that has always weighed on me heavily, and it still to this day weighs on me heavily. I have issues when people tell me I can't accomplish something, but today I work a lot harder to do that. But back then it was something that when I started feeling that way to get drunk, it was a way to get out. It was a way to move on. It was a way not to feel those emotions anymore. I wasn't upset. You could call me any name in the book, but I was so drunk I'd laugh around, and I was known for doing stupid, idiotic things. We'd go to parties in the neighborhood and I'd jump over bonfires. This is what everybody laughed and hurrayed about. Well, I thought I was being Mr. Cool Guy and making all these friends. No, they were laughing at me because I was an idiot, and they were egging me on, treating me like I was, like this really cool, popular guy, and I was never cool and popular. I was never anything. And the drinking just progressed and progressed. Growing up from there, going into middle school, I never graduated on stage in Doyle Middle School. My graduation for middle school was sitting on the front lawn of W.K. Doyle Middle School with a bottle of Yukon Jack while all my friends were inside graduating. and I was outside drinking.
So tell me about the progression from the misgraduation up into your advanced into your teen years and then to adulthood. The progression of your drinking into possibly other drugs and how it took form.
As I went from middle school, that was my drinking days. You know, once in a while, I think I tried pot once before that during middle school. It wasn't really a big thing to us. Our big thing was chewing tobacco. We used to put chewing tobacco on. It would give us like a little buzz in middle school, and that's what we did. When I got into high school, I always hung out with the drinkers. And hanging out with the drinkers brought you to the addicts, or the other aspects of curiosity and trying new things as a kid. The group of friends I was hanging out with, I guess you can call us hippies, and we started smoking a lot of marijuana and acid. I loved acid. It was sometimes creepy. It was sometimes a blast, but it was always, in the end, it was always a good time. But what I realized today, what it was all about, was I was the one supplying the acid, so that's why all the friends came with it. But acid, shrooms, marijuana, that was right after the alcohol. That was my freshman and sophomore year of high school. We'd go into school, you go into class, tripping face, not knowing where we are, just laughing and giggling all the whole day through and just having a good old time while we're at school. And it was great. I don't know how to say it without, not trying to make it sound crazy, but it was great. I had all these friends. I had all these people around me. I was the big comedian of the school. I used to run through the school and scream and yell and jump up and down and do stupid things. And everybody thought I was the funniest, coolest guy there. After high school, I applied for Hudson Valley Community College. I walked in. I had to do placement tests. Because I was involved in resource classes in high school and things like that. So they had to check out my reading and writing and math and all that. I went in, I think I lasted 15 minutes. I walked out the door and I was at a bar. Now, I'm only 19 years old at the time, and I was down in South Troy at the El Dorado having cocktails, because that's where we all hung out. Age really wasn't a factor in that bar back in those days. And then my progression with alcohol and marijuana, the acid kind of dipped away. It just kind of wasn't my thing anymore. And as I started really getting involved in the bar scene, that's when I got involved with cocaine. Cocaine destroyed everything I had, to tell you the truth. I had a great job, a great family.
What'd you do for a living at the time?
I was a waiter at the Troy Pub and Brewery in Troy. My mother was the general manager there. I was from the age of 17 to about the age of 21. I was probably making about a good $2,000 to $3,000 a week, easily, waiting tables.
Spending how much?
About $1,000 a day, easily. I was stealing. I was taking stuff from my parents. I was still living at home at the time. My father had a coin collection, and it was just pride and joy. I mean, he's been collecting coins since he was a little kid, and I took that. He still has a few pieces of it left today that are, stored away, tucked away for his grandkids, but I took a lot of that, and I spent that on drugs, and then I realized that I didn't have to steal to get my drugs, because I was introduced to selling it. And I ended up becoming a pretty heavy hitter down in Troy with a good group of friends of mine. And I always say a good group of friends of mine, but I realized what they were later on in life.
Associates.
Associates. And then I realized I could do it for free, I guess you were supposed to make money doing it, but I had a great time.
That's one of the commandments. Don't get high on your own supply.
Well, I got very high on my supply. I don't know how I made the money to pay back the guys that gave me the stuff. And I lived in bars. That's all I did. The El Dorado in Troy was a spot that I was there 24/7. I mean, sometimes we were sleeping in the back room. It was pretty amazing. But I lost a lot of good friends during that time. You know, a lot of good friends that today I look back at and I realize that, you know, it's sad that what happened. These are kids that weren't involved in alcohol or drugs or anything like. These are kids I grew up with that I just completely, you know, pushed away because I wanted to be Mr. Important. I wanted to walk around. I wanted to drive in a limousine for 2 blocks to get dropped off in front of a dirtbag bar filled with a bunch of dirtbag people that could give 2 shits about me or about anything else. All they wanted was in my pocket. But I got out of that limo feeling like I was Mr. Important, you know. Me and my buddies were known to do that on a weekly basis. Saturday nights was like our night. We're going out. We're like the big pimps, you know what I mean? Like, you know, get out with all the girls. But the girls you're getting out of the car with are like, I got these 2 fine girls. Today, they were probably the 2 rattiest broads that were in that bar. That like, you know, like I can regret to the day I die that I can't believe that I even had my arm around these people. You know what I mean? But the progression of the drugs continued, and it got so out of hand that that I didn't know what to do anymore. So I just continued to use. I continued to abuse and use and take advantage of everybody and everything that was around me, not knowing that that's what I was doing.
What were some of the low points? What were some of the bottoms that you hit in your real hardcore active addiction?
Oh my God. The things that I've done to my parents, the things that I've done to my family. There's things that weren't my fault, but 99% of them were. And my issues with when I get high or drunk is I'd attack the people I love. And I mean, I'd physically attack the people I love. I'd go after, the first person I'd go after and grab and do anything to is my mother. How could you ever put your hands on your mother? Well, I did, and I'm lucky and today still trying to resolve that situation. You know, my mother loves me to death. She's there for me every second of the way. You know, I'm with my mother every day of my life, but there's still resentments there, and I know that there's still issues that I have to fix. My little brother despises me today because one night he walked into a bar that I was in, and I ripped him apart like he was the biggest piece of trash in the world while I'm shaking hands with the biggest piece of trash in the world, you know. And he holds that against me, and I give him every right in the world to hold that against me. And but it hurts me. It hurts my soul that I can't have a relationship with him, and the issues that we have today will continue. You know, my older brother owns a business. You know, he's a professional MMA fighter, and I walked around, he opened a business, and I walked around telling everybody it was mine. You know what I mean? Destroying the reputation of something that he's building up to make for himself, to do something for his family. And here I am, you know, running my mouth because I always had to feel like I was important. I always have to feel like, you know, I'm doing the right thing, and it's always ends up being the wrong thing. Me and my dad, we finally have a good relationship today, but me and him have always had issues, but that was resentments from me because I always blamed him for everything that has ever happened to me.
So at what point did you come to some sort of conclusion that you needed help? I knew I needed help when?
I met my wife. And the one of the worst things they say is in recovery is you should never, ever get in a relationship. Well, 2 years before I decided to get help, I met, I'll definitely say the love of my life, Lauren. We met at my brother's MMA school. I was actually her Taekwondo instructor. The running joke is she kicked me in the face and I fell in love with her. We hit it off. She was just me. I was her. We were just so compatible. It was crazy. And at the time, she was actually dating somebody. So I had to work my way in there. And I slithered my way in there like the good alcoholic I was, and I made my move finally when she broke up with her ex-boyfriend. And for 2 years she dealt with me drinking and drugging and and going to work and picking her up from work drunk off my ass, and I used to pick her up from work and drive her home completely hammered. Lauren's sister was killed by a tractor truck driver in a fatal accident where her sister and her sister's mother-in-law was killed at the same time. And I, to this day, I still can't believe that I put her in that situation. But I proposed to Lauren 2 years ago on the battlefield of Gettysburg, and I was drunk off my ass. Not that I regret it or not that I wanted to do it, because I did want to do it, but I regret that I did it, that I was drunk. I was not sober. To me, it took the meaning out of the whole thing that I look at it today. On October 25th, 3 years ago, I had my last drink. Lauren's father's involved in a Halloween haunted house in Waterville, and I was down there with typical drinking a bottle, 2 bottles, 3 bottles later. Lauren's father asked me to go for a ride to the hardware store to pick something up, and there was Lauren's brother, and like any brother would, protect his sister, and he talked her out of driving with me and talked me into letting him drive my car. Well, anybody that's an alcoholic addict will tell you right off, don't tell me what to do. I know what I'm doing, don't tell me what to do. So we got in a big argument, and by the end of it, it almost turned into a brawl of me attacking her father, me attacking her brother, then me continuing to drive and walk around the neighborhood screaming and yelling, going into convenience stores, calling clerks terrorists, and this, that, the other thing. I end up having my brother over the house. I attacked my mother. I attacked my father. My brother ended up dislocating my jaw that night, and I ended up in the hospital for the 10th, 12th time in that year from over drinking or overdosing on drugs. That night involved alcohol. I went home the next day from the hospital because nobody came to me. It was the first time ever. My mother didn't come. My father didn't come. They all finally wrote me off. And I went home and I said, you know what? Forget them. They're not worth my time. They didn't come. They didn't come for me. Who do they think they are not to come for me?
Yeah, don't you know who I think I am?
Exactly. So I proceeded to pack my car, and I loaded up my car. I was renting an apartment for my parents at the time. All my clothes, I'm loading up my car. And as I'm doing it, I'm like, I don't know. Something punched me in the face. It was like, well, what am I doing? What am I doing with myself? I walked back in the house, and I sat downstairs, and I'm just looking around in my living room, and there was a phone book. I picked up the phone book, I opened up the yellow pages, and I found a 1-800 number. I called that 1-800 number, and it was to a place called B-Hop in West Palm Beach, Florida. And that was when I decided that enough's enough. I've gotten a little out of control, and I can't continue to do this to myself.
So tell me how it's been since you got sober.
Since I've been sober, it's probably the greatest thing of my life. Ups and downs, oh my God. There's good days. There's days I want to jump off a bridge. But 2 years ago, I got married to Lauren, the happiest person in the world. I have one of the best wives you can ever ask for. She loves me no matter what I do. And I am a very complicated person to live with. I have OCD, so when it comes to you drink a cup of juice in my house, you clean the dish once you're done with that cup of juice, and she's not as clean as I am. So not that she's a dirty person, but she's not as organized and things like that for me. So she deals with me with my sarcasm and my me being aggravated on a daily basis. But 5 months ago, we had our first child, Olivia Marie.
Congratulations.
Thank you very much. It's amazing. It's amazing, you know. And that little girl, I'm with her every single day of my life. I'm lucky, but not lucky to be working right now. You know, I've been through the past couple years. I've been through 3 major back surgeries. I have screws in my back. I have a cage in my back.
So you've been through 3 major back surgeries and you haven't relapsed.
Not at all. Not at all. I came out of the hospital every time with prescriptions of Loratab, or, you know, the one time they gave me morphine after my fusion, and I just refused to take them. I dealt with the pain. I deal with the pain on a daily basis even today. Last week I went in, I had another procedure done with injections in my back and stents put in my cage. Still today I deal with pain. Sitting here right now, I could scream. It's going up through my neck right now, the pain. It hurts so bad.
But no matter what, you just don't use.
No matter what, I don't use.
What would be your message to the still sick and suffering, the alcoholic, the addict, the person that's struggling with mental health, whether it be OCD, whether it be anger management issues, that's still out there? What would be your message to someone that's watching Matt right now? What would you say to them?
Don't do it alone. You can't do it alone. I couldn't do it alone. You can't do it alone. I don't think there's any addict or alcoholic or anybody that I've ever met that can do it alone. Use support groups. Go to church. Watch videos like this. Talk to anybody. Just ask for help, because help is there. It's so easy just to say, please help me. It's there. And you can have what I have, basically.
Welcome to Colonie TV, the governmental educational channel for the town of Colonie.